Hello everybody, it's good to be with you again today from a very cold Jeffreys Bay, and I think as we've passed the solstice and hopefully moving towards spring, we've had probably some of the coldest weather we've had, so it's been a very chilly time here, although it has dried up a little bit. It's not as wet, but it's good to be with you today, and welcome to everybody here talking about the issue of weight management and looking at it from a metabolic perspective beyond what is very often the quick fix, because that's where so often people move towards is they're looking for a quick fix. We want instant things in our lives today, and we want to be able to simply very often take something to get a sustained and lasting result. We need to look at it from the perspective of lifestyle. So sustainable weight management through lifestyle and cellular nutrition. So looking at the Neolife products in relation to weight management, and we will look at aspects of lifestyle which are so important to go along with any kind of supplement or weight management system that we do, changing or modifying our lifestyle to a healthier way of eating, a healthier nutrition, and just a generally healthier lifestyle, which we'll talk about, is so important. It's important to be able to ensure that we actually have something which is not an interim fix, but something that is lasting and sorts out the problem from the source. If we look at the global weight crisis, and it is actually a crisis, when we look at some of the statistics, which I'll show you shortly, you'll begin to understand just how much of a crisis it actually is. We'll uncover some of the science behind obesity, what the metabolic consequences are, and evidence-based strategies for a lasting transformation to make a difference in the long term. Global obesity crisis, and if we look at it, according to the WHO, worldwide obesity has nearly tripled since 1975 through into 2022, and we do have some of the figures, and it's not looking any better coming through to 24 and 26 where we are now. Over 1 billion people globally were living with obesity, including 650 million adults, 340 million adolescents, and 39 million children under the age of 5. So it's a problem, and according to the WHO, the global obesity statistics are that adults overweight represent 1.9 billion people worldwide that are actually overweight, and that represents 39% of the global adult population looking back in 2022. And as I say, what the stats are currently showing us, it's not improving, it's just getting worse. Adults with obesity represent 650 million adults living with obesity, representing 13% of the world's adult population. And then when we look at children who are affected, 340 million children and adolescents aged between 5 and 19 are overweight or obese, and that relates to 18% of that age group. So 39% of adults overweight, 18% children, and then adults with obesity is 13%. And in reality, that's looking at obesity and overweight levels reaching like the 70% mark internationally. And if we look at the UK and the US, particularly where these problems are really, really bad, they're sitting with that. And you just need to look, walk around and just take note of people and children around you, and how many are in actual fact either overweight or morbidly obese. And it's a problem. And we'll get into why it is such a problem as we move through the presentation. We'll talk about why being overweight or obese is such a problem, and why it is a crisis. When we look at, and we're going to look at three main aspects, I guess, of this related to being overweight. Cardiovascular disease and diabetes are two of the things which obesity raises the risk of heart diseases by 28%, and type 2 diabetes, or you will have heard of it as metabolic disorder, or pre-diabetes and so on. And in fact, they now have a third one, diabetes type 3, which relates to Alzheimer's and that sort of thing. But up to 80% of people are we have this type 2 diabetes that people are affected. WHO reports that cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death globally, with excess weights being a leading contributor to this problem. The other thing is mental health and the quality of life. People living with obesity generally are 55% more likely to develop depression, according to the WHO. And it's obviously, it comes along with a stigma. There's a reduced mobility, chronic pain and inflammation, which comes along with that because of the excess sugar and so on, or excess carbohydrate, which causes a major problem in terms of joint pain, and just, even cholesterol. So many other issues are caused by the inflammation related to our poor carb or high carb diets that we have gotten so used to eating. It diminishes the quality of life, and also obviously social participation. Very often people don't want to, or don't feel like it. They are hypersensitive about their weight and so on. So it reduces their interaction within their communities and so on. So it can be, and you begin then to understand why it is a crisis and why it is such a problem. There is also the economic burden, and the global economic cost of obesity exceeds $2 trillion annually, according to the McKinsey Global Institute. Obesity-related healthcare spending accounts for about 2 to 7% of total healthcare budgets in high-income countries. And we would like to think that this is not a problem in first world and other countries, but it is particularly a problem because of the lifestyles in those in countries where there is a fair amount of money and where people are fairly affluent. When we look at how it's so often dealt with, it's very often dealt with drug interventions, and it's been common for many, many years. There's been lots of new develops and so on relating to drugs being used, but it's the trap very often of easy, because so often people want to just be able to take a tablet. They want to be able to do something that's quick and easy, and to get rid of the problem. And unfortunately, those things may help for a period of time, but medicines and drugs focus on appetite suppression. They don't address the problem, the nutritional deficiencies that are actually driving the hunger. Drugs may mask the hunger signal, but they often lead to many other problems and side effects. For instance, just some of them: muscle loss, irritability, overstimulation, which is a common thing with some of the early drugs that they've used, and over-the-counter medications that you used to be able to buy for weight loss. And also you end up with a lot of nutritional gaps, because the thing is, if you're just dealing with suppressing the hunger, you're not dealing with what the body's actually needing and asking for. The body's looking for nutrition, and very often certain types of nutrition. So there are a lot of side effects that come along with it, and it's not a solution. It's an interim measure that you can take, a temporary intervention, not a long-term metabolic solution. The drug approach really silences the body's communication, which is appetite, the body wanting to eat. So we eat because the body's it needs something, and we're very often, the problem is we're not providing the right things, is why we end up with a weight gain and obesity, and we don't fix the root cause. With Neolife, the advantage is that it provides raw materials for health, not just giving a chemical override, but genuine lifestyle changes that we can make and support to be able to manage our weight properly, whether you're wanting to gain or lose weight. In fact, either way, a lot of the solutions are very similar, believe it or not. So looking at the core philosophy, the causality over symptoms, with a reality check, drugs and in fact very often some of the fad diets that we have are really temporary interventions, and true success only comes from lifestyle causality, fixing the metabolic why rather than silencing the body's communication. So we deal with the root cause, fix that, and the body then is far happier. So what we're going to look at obviously then is we're going to look at things like for health, we're going to look at, we need proper nutrition, we need appropriate nutrition, we need rest, we need sleep, we need to get sunlight, not only for the vitamin D that comes from that, but also relating to the circadian rhythm. Very often vitamins, minerals and so on are very often important because of the nutritional deficiencies within the food that we are supplied with these days. Looking at lifestyle, looking at exercise or sport, whichever you do, and it's this thing again, we need to move, not have to do excessive movement and endurance and crazy sport. We need to move, we need to keep our bodies moving for our cardiovascular system, for our lymphatic systems, and just for the joints and for bone health, etc. Really very important. And then obviously look, body care. So it's a combination of those things which are really important to improve. And what we do with NeoLife is we help you find a long-term sustainable solution, not just another fad diet or just something that you can take as a pill which is going to make a difference. It's a long-term thing which is sustainable, and you're going to feel better and be able to lose the weight and keep the weight off as necessary. So if we continue looking at this core philosophy of causality over symptoms, we look at weight gain is often a symptom of underlying metabolic dysfunction. So there's something wrong with the metabolism, and it's not just a case of eating too much. And the real shift comes in is we need to stop managing symptoms and start managing the metabolism. We need to fix the why and not just the what. We need to be looking at, and we're going to look at 6 different areas here basically relating to health and overall health. When we look at things like the circadian rhythm and sleep, that's what's so important when it comes to regulating the hormones, like for instance the cortisol and insulin. Your body gets signals in the morning to start producing your various hormones to start helping with the ingestion of food, stimulating hunger, and also what's going to be utilized in the metabolism of the food that you're going to be eating. And those hormones obviously control your hunger as well. So it's so important to understand and get back into sync with and into routine effectively as far as your circadian rhythm is concerned and your sleep, because those two work together. You, in the evening, as you're getting ready to go to bed, your body's getting ready to go to sleep, melatonin levels are coming down, your insulin levels are basically dropping and so on, and you're actually getting to a point now where you need to be preparing for sleep and helping regulate the hormones, because very often we find that people who either are battling to lose weight or sort of plateau and can't keep losing the weight, they get to a point and they stop. When we simply look at this side of things and in terms of their sleep, we can very often fix a lot of the problem just by getting that back into sync and making sure that they're understanding what's going on and they're in fact getting proper sleep, utilizing this whole hormone fluctuation in terms of what's happening with the food and how they're using the carbs, where it's being deposited, etc. So very simple things by looking at this also, and you'll see just now linked into intermittent fasting as well. Hydration is also really important. Water is the medium for all metabolic reactions, but it's also so important for your electrolyte balances as well. You can drink too much, and very often the bigger percentage of people drink too little, and we very often battle with that to try and get people just to simply drink sufficient 2 to 3 liters of water a day. And to be very aware, caffeinated drinks and so on are not good things to do, because they impact on things like the insulin, and thereby they will impact on what happens with your blood glucose and so on. So water is really important, and you need to drink sufficient of it just generally for the functioning of your body, and for so many different reactions in your body. You try it for a while that you don't drink enough water, and you'll see how lousy you feel. Your body's also not going to be able to clear itself out and clear the toxins properly. You need to make sure that you drink sufficient water. Stress management is another really important one. This impacts more on the cortisol side of things, and we can't get rid of your stress, or you can't just generally very often get rid of stress, but you can manage your stress and help to lower the cortisol, which also then prevents the visceral fat storage and the dangerous, damaging fat storage around the organs and around the belly and so on. So, most of us are in chronic stress, and that's the problem. A little bit of stress is not a bad thing, but when we're in the chronic stress, you're constantly stimulating the cortisol, and that also impacts then on the insulin levels and what's happening with where carbs are being and fat is being deposited at the end of the day. When we look at dietary frameworks, it's so important to understand that this is not really rocket science. It's actually generally pretty simple. We need to find ways of eating that we end up with a blood sugar balancing type of lifestyle, which generally tends towards a ketogenic friendly type of eating for fat adaptation. And the thing about the blood sugar balancing is what we're trying to look at is preventing the spikes of insulin and then of the cortisol. So we're pushing the sugar up and down all the time, and that's very often it's those spikes and dips which are causing a lot of the damage, impacts on hunger. So if you can keep that balanced, you generally will deal with so much of your hunger, and we'll deal with a little bit with how that's done with nutrition as we work through. And then this thing I mentioned of intermittent fasting as well. Intermittent fasting very often, and what I will do on a daily basis is that I try and finish eating by 7:30 in the evening. I then generally only start eating 10, 11 o'clock the next day. I've given myself a nice window of fasting, which very often, and when you're trying to lose weight, you're actually getting a boost in terms of helping your body burn fat with the intermittent fasting, and particularly if you have your first meal as a protein-based meal, not a carbohydrate meal, it gives your body that extra opportunity to burn fat. So a very important thing and simple thing to remember to do. Exercise is also so important. We use movement as a signal for lean body mass or lean tissue retention, and also just to help our lymphatic system, our cardiovascular system, and for general health. We don't need to have this excessive exercise. We do need to move though, and we need to keep moving because it's vital not only for those, but also for bone strength and density. Very important to be able to make sure that we keep moving and don't we're not just sedentary. And then the thing about sunlight, it's healing. It helps us develop or build more vitamin D, and that's a hormone which is in actual fact, it's really important for many of the hormones within our body and so many different functions within our body, that vitamin D on its own is one of those things that we need to make sure we get enough of, because it impacts so many different things, also like zinc, which is involved in so many different reactions within our body. Two really important things that we need to make sure we have enough of in our daily lives. So if we then start looking at the foundational nutrition and looking at the neo-life side of things in terms of what is really important to be taking, if we look, and I like to always look at this product of Pro Vitality, that because you cannot build a healthy metabolic system on a crumbling foundation. So our nutrition, and if there's nothing else that you can use within the Neo-Life range, Pro Vitality is something I can absolutely recommend. It contains a number of really foundational products to ensure that our nutrition is supplemented in such a way that we are getting an overall base of the complete nutrition and supplementation that we need from the TRINN, which is the grain concentrates, which ensure that our cell membrane flexibility is as it should be. Things can be absorbed into the cells, the toxin can be gotten rid of, and it is also really important as far as our mitochondria are concerned. And mitochondria at the end of the day are the things that produce the ATP, the energy that makes the rest of life possible. So it's really important to make sure that we have healthy cells and healthy mitochondria. The other part of, or what's contained within the ProVitality, is the carotenoid complex, and this protects cells from oxidative stress and helps boost our immunity. Now, the oxidative stress relates to obviously aging and fighting against aging and preventing the degradation of our body in general. So we need those, and where we find so much of that, as well as you can see from the picture of the box of the Vitality, comes from a lot of our vegetables and fruits. The colored vegetables and fruits and so on are providing a lot of the carotenoids. So if you're going to do, or you want to know how to deal with that as well from a natural perspective, eat color. So eat a lot of different colored fruit and vegetables, which is what will help as far as that's concerned. And then when we look at the omega-3 plus contained within ProVitality, it's high potency EPA and DHA, and that supports heart health, is anti-inflammatory and helps with the inflammation management, also with cognitive health as well. So important for all of those different things, and for things like making sure that our cardiovascular systems are actually healthy. We have the best omega-3 that there is out there. It's stuff that we know. We have a complete range of the omega-3 acids in the product, and we know as well the way that it is produced is absolutely free from contamination and is definitely not rancid. So it actually works, and it's a brilliant product. The other thing that's contained within the ProVitality is there's an essential vitamin and mineral complex, and that bridges this dietary gap because of the nutrient deficient foods and diets and processed foods that we have. It is absolutely vital for that, and it complements that, so we make sure that we have a very good base to work from. The next product that we're going to be looking at is something that actually helps with the mastering or dealing with the blood glucose, and that's this Botanical Balance. Botanical Balance is also quite an amazing product. It really helps to control, like I said, with the blood sugar issue, because it helps prevent that insulin roller coaster with just the blend and what's within it. It contains cinnamon, curcumin, turmeric, chromium, and alpha lipoic acid. Now, cinnamon is something that in actual fact helps control carbohydrate and so on. The curcumin, also these things, as does alpha lipoic acid, actually helps with the increasing the insulin sensitivity. So it helps with the control of the carbohydrates and the sugar spikes and so on. Turmeric and curcumin also are anti-inflammatory and vital for our bodies as well. Really good products. Like you've seen some of these shots that they have when they're using turmeric, they're using ginger, normally some kind of citrus, orange or the like, and a bit of black pepper. Those combinations are also really good. This provides a fair amount of that with the curcumin and the turmeric. Chromium is also really important from the perspective as well. It actually can actually be used as an antidepressant in sufficiently high doses as well. And as I've said, the alpha lipoic acid is one of those things that also has anti-inflammatory effects, aids with the management of weight, and sensitizes or increases sensitivity to insulin as well. So a really good product, and the combination, what it really does as well is also supports normal pancreatic function and helps the body metabolize and control carbohydrates and the sugar, and ends up with promoting whole body glucose management and maintains healthy insulin activity. So it's a product as well which can just help so much with the issues related to carbohydrates and insulin, sugar, blood sugar balancing. When we're looking at satiety and composition, things like the Neolife Shake it's a strategic type of protein, because Neolife Shake contains a fair amount or high amount of protein, provides 18 grams of biologically complete protein with all 22 amino acids, and that promotes lean muscle retention. It minimizes your fat storage and keeps the body in fat burning mode. So it's something you can also use as a meal replacement, and something which rather use something like this than stretching for an unhealthy product, and something on the go that people can in actual fact use. Why fiber is important is because fiber not only helps with gut health, it also helps in terms of keeping you satisfied. And in the all natural fiber, there's 8 grams per serving from 11 whole food sources. And with the tablets, if you take the fiber tablets 30 minutes before a meal, it helps you feel full as well. So think about things like fat, protein, and fiber, all things which will help keep you full and make you feel satiated. Things to remember when you're eating. So when you have it, don't go stretch for the carbs, stretch for these things which will help to make you feel full and prevent you from overeating. Another really convenient thing is this Neolife bar. It's a perfect snack to have. It also provides 10 grams of protein and 5 grams of fiber. There's also a really good combination between the carbohydrate and the protein. It's literally one protein to 2 carbs, and that's a really good combination to be having. The higher protein, it's got the fiber, really good snack to take, which will keep you satisfied. So a brilliant way to to have something in between. Then when we look at this product, Amitone, something that helps with metabolic fat burning, and we look also from a thermogenic perspective at the Neolife Tea, and I'll describe or talk a little bit about that now when I talk about the Neolife. But Amitone is, you can use this thing as a nighttime sort of secret use. It uses the free form amino acids, the L-arginine and L-ornithine, and these both support fat mobilization and lean muscle mass development. If you take it 3 hours after the last meal, it works well while you sleep to create specific amino acid balances that favor the utilization of fat. So it actually helps you to keep moving or removing fat and so on, and that's where it helps with the lean muscle mass. Neolife Tea provides a combination which this whole thing of thermogenesis, and it's a really important part of how we eat as well, because the thermogenic effect of our eating, even if we just forget about having all these different things, just the protein that we take in, we get a thermogenic effect from the protein and fat and so on that we eat. It's the effort basically and the calorie, what our body's using through the process of digestion, which also helps us actually remove the fat and so on. And it's that process, the thermogenic process, which is in actual fact stimulated by the and promotes the natural fat burning using a Neolife Tea with the green, black and white tea, which promotes it as well. So it provides, and the thermogenic effect is a lot bigger than most people actually realize. I've developed an app. Most apps don't bring in the thermogenic effect. I've actually included it in that, so that when you look at all the calories and other things that you're using, you also then consider the thermogenic effect, and that's the amount of protein, fat and so on that you're eating as the impact of reducing the weight. It is significant, and it's really important. Your body, in just working to digest, is reducing the fat. There are also adaptogenic herbs within the Neolife Tea, like Panax ginseng and this rhodiola rosea, and those help the body adapt to the physiological stress of a calorie-conscious diet. So adaptogens are those things now that we take which help our body deal with the different things and the stresses that are happening around us. Also pretty important. And so, those two products simply have a fair amount of, or fair impact on what we can, the improvement that we can get in terms of weight management, little tricks that we can use. So we've looked today at the whole thing of looking at the various products which help us with the weight management. We've also looked at lifestyle changes, and the combination of the two is what's going to help you make this sustainable. I'll just put down quickly some creative promotion, sales and ideas that you can maybe look at. something like the Metabolic Reboot Challenge. Create a 21-day challenge where customers track non-scale victories, things like energy, skin, waist circumferences, rather than just weight. And we can help you with putting that together as well if you want to chat to me. I'm very happy to help you do that using different nutritional strategies as well as the Neolife products like the Amitone, etc. The Night Shift Bundle, promote Amitone by targeting the I can't lose weight crowd, people who say they can't lose weight, and very often the Amitone actually helps with that. And also with the intermittent fasting through the next day, you can actually help them break that, and they can then begin to get away from the plateau and start losing weight. Recipe Socials, host a live demo showing how to mix all natural fiber into soups, baking or oatmeal, and having the fiber in there, obviously it's going to keep them satisfied, and we call it the stealth health, which people very often don't realize they're actually doing it. So they're getting it for gut health, and they're getting it to help keep them or make them feel full. And then the Glucose Awareness Workshop, use the botanical balance data to host a workshop, why we crave sugar, and we've actually done presentations just on botanical balance, which again we can replay, we can share those with you, and you can offer the product as a tool to break the cycle, because it very often helps them with that blood sugar balancing process as well. And then things like, consider the on-the-go kits, market things like the tea sticks and the Neolife bars as anti-drive-through kit, things that, for busy people, they don't just stretch for all sorts of other things which are not healthy for them. Stretch for things like the Neolife bars and the tea, which is far more healthy for them. Great. So I hope that's been helpful. That you've been able to pick up things that can help, that you can use in helping other people in their lives to try and sort out this issue with weight and weight management and lifestyle, or healthy lifestyles. You need to invest in your lifestyle and metabolic health with these nutritional solutions. We've given you a whole lot, and as I say, if you have got questions, please feel free to ask. You can email, message the questions through. Anything that we can help with, let me know. And yeah, I hope it's been useful. Thanks a lot for joining us today.